My friends, have you ever noticed that true inspiration is not always found in loud declarations or dramatic achievements, but in the silent elegance with which some people live their lives? Grace is not just about external charm. It is about the inner strength, humility, and kindness that lives far beyond one's own generation. Think of a grandmother who, with gentle words, holds an entire family together. She may not have achieved worldly fame, yet her patience, her resilience, and her selfless love become the foundation upon which future generations stand tall. This is grace, the kind that does not need recognition, but silently transforms hearts. Grace teaches us to respond instead of react, to uplift instead of criticize, and to forgive instead of holding grudges. When we embody grace, we give the world a legacy that travels far beyond our lifetime. History shows us that civilizations were shaped not only by warriors and leaders, but also by those who carried themselves with dignity, empathy, and compassion. A single act of grace, whether through forgiveness, patience, or service, can inspire countless others to do the same. So, if you ever doubt whether your simple, kind, and graceful actions matter, remember this: a candle doesn't lose its flame by lighting another. Instead, it creates more light. Your grace may be the very spark that brightens the path for generations to come. When we hear the word grace, our minds often drift toward elegance in appearance, charm in words, or refinement in behavior. While these qualities may be admirable, true grace runs far deeper than surface level beauty. It is not confined to the way someone walks, dresses, or speaks. Rather, it is a quiet power of character, an inner strength, and a humility that shines from within. True grace cannot be purchased, taught in a classroom, or faked for long. It comes from living with authenticity, empathy, and awareness. Consider this: beauty may capture attention for a while, but grace captures hearts for a lifetime. External beauty is temporary. It fades with time, changing seasons and age. But grace, being an inner quality, only grows stronger with each passing year. The way a person remains kind in the face of harshness, calm in the midst of chaos, and humble even in moments of success, these are the signs of real grace. It inspires not through words alone, but through silent action, through how one carries themselves in everyday life. In thee, we often underestimate how much we influence others by simply being who we are. A person who walks into a room with pride and arrogance may draw attention, but a person who enters with grace leaves behind warmth that lingers. Grace doesn't demand recognition, it creates respect naturally. When you observe someone with true grace, you don't admire their appearance as much as you admire their spirit. Their energy brings comfort their presence brings peace, and their humility makes you want to become better. Think of the countless figures throughout history who may not have been known for their beauty or power, yet they shaped entire generations with their inner qualities. A mother who sacrifices silently for her children without ever boasting. A teacher who patiently nurtures students without seeking credit, a leader who places service above self. These are the embodiments of grace. They may not stand on stages or shine in magazines, but their silent inspiration lives more deeply than fame ever could. In the inner strength is at the heart of grace. It allows a person to endure challenges without becoming bitter, to forgive when wronged, and to continue giving even when unappreciated. This strength is not loud or forceful, it is gentle yet unshakable. Paired with humility, it creates a rare combination, an individual who is powerful yet soft, capable yet modest, wise yet approachable. People naturally gravitate towards such souls, not because they demand attention, but because they radiate peace and goodness. Imagine a tree that bears fruit. It stands tall, not boasting about its size or strength. Instead, it quietly provides shade and nourishment. The more fruit it bears, the more its branches bend downward in humility. That is exactly what grace looks like in a human being. The more they achieve, the more humble they become. The more they know, the more they listen. The more they grow, the more they give. Grace is the silent language of the soul, and it does not need translation. You may forget the words someone spoke or the way they looked, but you will never forget how their grace made you feel. And when one lives with true grace, they leave behind a legacy that inspires not only the present generation, but countless generations yet to come. When we think of inspiration, our minds often jump to extraordinary achievements. People who scaled mountains, built empires, or broke world records. While these stories are impressive, the truth is that the deepest and most lasting inspiration often doesn't come from those who have done something grand, but from those who live ordinary lives with extraordinary patience and kindness. The beauty of such lives is that they are accessible to all of us. We don't need to climb Everest or win awards to inspire others. We just need to live with simplicity, authenticity, and love. Think about the people who have touched your life most deeply. Was it always someone famous, or was it often someone close to you? Maybe it was a teacher who believed in you when you doubted yourself. Maybe it was a friend who stayed by your side in silence when you were going through pain. Or perhaps it was a parent who worked quietly, sacrificing personal comfort so that you could have a better life. These people may never be celebrated in newspapers or social media posts, but their influence lasts far longer than fleeting headlines. Their patience and kindness carve lessons into our hearts that we carry for a lifetime. Patience itself is a powerful form of inspiration. In a world where everyone is rushing, patience is almost like a hidden strength. To remain calm when things take longer than expected, to endure hardships without losing faith, to wait for the right moment without giving in to frustration, this is no small feat. Watching someone live with patience teaches us more about resilience than any motivational slogan could. It shows us that strength is not about force or speed, but about steadiness, the ability to keep going without losing balance. Kindness, too, is a profound source of inspiration. A kind word spoken at the right time can heal wounds that no medicine can touch. A small gesture, helping someone carry their burden, listening without judgment, smiling at a stranger, can spark hope where there was none. What makes kindness so inspiring is that it costs nothing, yet it has the power to change everything. And when kindness is combined with patience, it creates a presence that calms hearts, restores faith, and awakens goodness in others. History remembers kings and warriors, but families remember the grandmother who raised children with quiet love, the father who endured struggles without complaining, the neighbor who was always ready to help without expecting anything in return. These are the lives that shape us, not through grand speeches, but through small, consistent acts of goodness. And when we look back, we realize that the people who inspired us most were often those who never even tried to be inspiring. They were simply being themselves, patient, kind, and genuine. There is a silent dignity in simple lives. They don't seek recognition, yet they leave imprints on countless hearts. The influence of such people flows like a river, calm, steady, and life-giving. You may not notice its impact immediately, but over time, it shapes the land, nourishes growth, and sustains life. This is the true inspiration, quiet, gentle, but powerful enough to move generations. A legacy is not always built through monuments, wealth, or fame. In fact, many of the grandest legacies fade away with time. Buildings crumble, wealth is spent, names are forgotten. Yet, there are some legacies that outlive centuries, carried not on stone or paper, but in the hearts and values of people. And these are often built by graceful souls, those who lived not to impress the world, but to serve it, not to collect recognition, but to plant seeds of goodness. A truly graceful person does not live for applause, yet their presence echoes far beyond their lifetime. Consider the quiet figure of a teacher who spends decades shaping young minds. They may not have headlines or awards to their name, but the knowledge, the encouragement, and the patience they offer to students create ripples. A student becomes a professional, a leader, a parent, or even a teacher themselves. Carrying forward the lessons of kindness and discipline they once received. In this way, the teacher's legacy doesn't end with their life, it extends across generations. Grace multiplies itself. It is never wasted. A graceful person understands that influence does not come from authority alone, but from example. Their humility shows others the beauty of modesty. Their patience demonstrates strength without aggression. Their forgiveness teaches others that love is greater than ego. Every action becomes a silent lesson. And while others may forget their words, they never forget the way they lived. That becomes the foundation upon which future generations build their character. Think of families. In every household, there is often one person whose values hold the family together. It might be a grandmother who, with gentle wisdom, keeps peace among siblings. It could be a father who works tirelessly without seeking credit. It could even be a sibling who sacrifices personal comfort so that others can thrive. These people may leave the world quietly, but their legacy continues every time the family remembers their example and chooses love over conflict, patience over anger, humility over pride. Their grace becomes a living inheritance. Even history is full of such examples. There are leaders who ruled with power, but their names are forgotten, while others who ruled with compassion and humility are remembered for centuries. Why? Because force may win battles, but grace wins hearts. And what is carried in hearts lasts far longer than what is carved on stone. A graceful life becomes a story retold, an example imitated, a path followed long after the person is gone. The beauty of such a legacy is that it doesn't require the person to be physically present anymore. Their values, their attitude, and their graceful way of living get woven into the culture of families, communities, and sometimes entire societies. A simple act of forgiveness by one generation teaches the next how to let go. A consistent display of kindness becomes a family tradition. A legacy of grace doesn't just inspire, it transforms, shaping how generations think, behave, and treat one another. So, when a graceful person leaves this world, they don't really leave. Their body may no longer walk among us, but their essence lives on in the choices, the behaviors, and the values of those who came after. That is the true legacy, one that requires no wealth, no fame, no grand possessions, but only a life lived with inner beauty and outer humility. And such a legacy, unlike material inheritance, never fades away. Life constantly presents us with situations that test our patience, challenge our emotions, and provoke us to react. A harsh word, an unexpected setback, an unfair treatment. These are everyday experiences. Most people respond to such moments impulsively. Anger, irritation, or hurt takes over, and before we realize it, we've said something we regret or done something that leaves lasting damage. But those who live with grace understand a simple yet profound truth. It is not what happens to us that defines us, but how we choose to respond. Responding wisely requires restraint. It requires the ability to pause before acting, to breathe before speaking, and to reflect before deciding. This pause is not a sign of weakness, but of strength. Anyone can react in anger, but it takes inner mastery to respond with calmness and clarity. Grace is found in that pause, in the ability to rise above the heat of the moment and act from wisdom rather than impulse. Imagine a workplace where a leader is constantly tested by stress, deadlines, and conflicts. A reactive leader might shout blame or create fear. Productivity may increase temporarily, but the environment becomes toxic. On the other hand, a graceful leader who responds thoughtfully instead of reacting harshly creates trust. They address problems firmly but respectfully. They guide rather than intimidate. And they turn challenges into opportunities for growth. People feel safe around them, and as a result, loyalty and creativity flourish. The difference lies not in the external pressures, but in the choice of response. Graceful responding also shows its power in relationships. Every relationship, be it family, friendship, or marriage, faces misunderstandings and disagreements. A reactive person adds fuel to the fire, escalating small issues into big conflicts. But a person of grace pauses, listens, and chooses words that heal rather than hurt. They may disagree, but they do so without disrespect. They may feel anger, but they do not let anger control them. This ability to respond wisely turns relationships into safe spaces where love and trust can grow. There's a story of two neighbors who had a long-standing feud. One day, one of them insulted the other publicly, hoping to humiliate him. Instead of reacting with equal aggression, the other man smiled, stayed silent, and walked away. Later, he privately approached his neighbor and said, "I understand you're upset. Let's sit down and resolve this peacefully." That moment of grace not only ended the feud, but turned them into lifelong friends. A single wise response changed years of bitterness into harmony. This is the power of grace. It diffuses negativity. Reacting impulsively spreads more chaos, but responding with grace creates calmness and solutions. And the best part, responding wisely doesn't just influence others, it transforms us. It gives us peace of mind, prevents regret, and strengthens our self-control. Over time, we become more resilient, less disturbed by external noise, and more grounded in who we are. Graceful responding is not about suppressing emotions, but about guiding them. It's about channeling the energy of our feelings into constructive action instead of destructive reaction. When we master this art, we begin to inspire others, not by preaching self-control, but by living it. People around us notice the calm strength we carry, and they too learn to respond with grace. In this way, one person's choice to act wisely instead of reacting impulsively becomes a lesson that ripples outward, touching families, communities, and even generations. A life of grace is not measured by achievements, possessions, or recognition, but by the qualities that flow naturally from the heart. Among the most profound of these are forgiveness, patience, and empathy. These three virtues are not separate, they are woven together, forming the foundation of a character that uplifts others and leaves behind an enduring impact. To forgive, to wait patiently, and to feel deeply for another person's struggles are not easy tasks. They require inner maturity, humility, and strength. But those who practice them embody a grace that inspires everyone around them. Forgiveness is perhaps one of the greatest marks of grace. It is natural to feel hurt when someone wrongs us. Anger, resentment, and the desire for revenge come easily. But holding on to grudges is like carrying heavy stones in the heart. It burdens us more than it harms the other person. A graceful individual understands that forgiveness is not about excusing the wrong or pretending it never happened. It is about freeing oneself from the prison of bitterness. By forgiving, we release the past and open space for peace to enter. Many relationships are destroyed not because of great mistakes, but because forgiveness was withheld. When someone forgives, They show strength greater than revenge. And their choice becomes an example of healing for generations. Patience, too, reflects grace in action. In a world that glorifies speed, results, and instant gratification, patience has almost become rare, yet every meaningful growth, whether in nature, relationships, or personal development, requires time. A farmer waits for seeds to sprout, a parent patiently nurtures a child, and a teacher repeatedly explains lessons until understanding dawns. Patience shows trust in the process of life. It reveals the depth of one's strength. For it is far easier to rush and demand than it is to wait calmly. Graceful people inspire others because they carry an inner calm even in the midst of delays, setbacks, and hardships. Their patience teaches others that not everything can be forced. Some things must be allowed to unfold. Empathy is the third jewel in this crown of grace. It is the ability to step into another person's shoes, to feel their struggles, and to see the world through their eyes. Empathy dissolves barriers between people. It makes us realize that pain and joy are universal. A graceful individual listens not only with their ears, but with their heart. They don't judge quickly. Instead, they try to understand the story behind someone's behavior. Empathy transforms criticism into compassion, indifference into connection. When someone feels understood, they feel valued, and that simple gift can change their life. Together, forgiveness, patience, and empathy create a powerful harmony. Imagine a household where each member forgives quickly, waits patiently, and understands deeply. Conflicts may arise, but they do not last long. Love becomes stronger than ego, and harmony replaces chaos. Imagine a community built on these values, people lifting each other up instead of pulling each other down. Such communities thrive because grace flows through them like a steady current, nourishing everyone it touches. Living with these virtues does not mean life becomes easy. Forgiving still hurts, patience still tests us, and empathy still makes us vulnerable to others' pain. But grace is not about avoiding struggles, it is about choosing the higher path despite them. And when someone chooses forgiveness over revenge, patience over frustration, and empathy over judgment, they create a legacy that quietly shapes hearts and minds long after they are gone. When we look back at history, it is easy to see the grand figures who commanded armies, conquered lands, and changed political maps. Their names fill textbooks, and their actions often dominate stories of the past. Yet, if we look closer, beyond the noise of wars and victories, we will notice another set of individuals who shaped history in quieter but equally powerful ways. These were the dignified and compassionate souls who never ruled by force, but by values, character, and humanity. Their influence may not always be written in bold letters, but it lives on in the culture, ethics, and spirit of generations. Power alone can create fear, but dignity and compassion create respect that lasts much longer. A ruler may compel obedience, but a compassionate heart inspires loyalty. History shows us that empires built on fear often collapse quickly. while those influenced by values of grace and kindness leave behind legacies that last for centuries. Think of leaders who cared for their people more than for their own luxury, teachers who passed on wisdom without seeking fame, or saints who guided societies toward peace rather than division. Their names may not always dominate political chronicles, but they live on in songs, traditions, and the collective conscience of humanity. Consider how dignity changes the way power is remembered. A powerful person without dignity might achieve short-term results, but will eventually be forgotten or even despised. On the other hand, someone who leads with fairness, humility, and self-respect carries themselves in a way that uplifts everyone around them. Their decisions are not motivated by ego, but by responsibility. Their actions are not about self-gain, but about service. Such individuals set an example that inspires not only their contemporaries, but also those who come centuries later. Compassion, too, is a force that has shaped the world in ways often overlooked. Wars may change boundaries, but compassion changes hearts. A single compassionate act can heal wounds that weapons never could. History remembers great revolutions, but it also remembers the quiet moments when kindness saved lives, when mercy ended cycles of revenge, and when love overcame hatred. These moments are often the turning points that alter the course of humanity in ways deeper than political victories. It is not only in great figures that we see this truth. Ordinary individuals, too, have shaped history with their dignity and compassion. A nurse tending to the wounded during war, a writer reminding society of its conscience, a parent instilling values of honesty and respect in children. These are the unseen architects of history. Their names may not appear on monuments, but their influence flows through generations. Every compassionate act adds a stone to the foundation of a better world. The truth is that dignity and compassion are more enduring than power because they touch the very core of human beings. People forget battles, but they remember kindness. They may forget laws, but they remember fairness. They may forget titles, but they never forget how someone made them feel respected and valued. That memory passes from parent to child, from teacher to student, and from generation to generation, creating an invisible chain of inspiration. So, when we reflect on history, we should not only study the powerful, but also honor the graceful souls who carried themselves with dignity and compassion. They remind us that true influence is not measured by the size of armies or wealth, but by the depth of humanity. Their silent strength has shaped the moral compass of civilizations and continues to inspire us to live with grace even today. We often think that to change the world, we need to do something grand, lead a movement, build an empire, or invent something extraordinary. But the truth is, some of the most powerful transformations begin with small, almost invisible acts of grace. A kind word, a helping hand, or a moment of sincere listening may not make the news, but it can set into motion a ripple effect that spreads far beyond what we can imagine. Grace doesn't demand big stages, It reveals its power in the smallest of gestures that carry the deepest impact. Imagine someone having a difficult day, burdened by worries, feeling unseen and unheard. Then, out of nowhere, a stranger offers a smile or a kind word. That small act may not solve all their problems, but it can shift their mindset, reminding them that goodness still exists. Encouraged, they may choose to pass on that kindness to someone else. Maybe offering help to a colleague, showing patience to a child, or reconciling with a loved one. And so, the ripple continues. What began as a tiny drop of grace becomes a wave of change moving from one heart to another. There is a story of a man who stopped to help a woman stranded with a broken down car. He fixed it and asked for nothing in return, only suggesting she help someone else when the opportunity arose. That same woman, later that week, supported a struggling mother by paying for her groceries. That mother, touched by the kindness, became inspired to help her neighbor care for their child. Each act flowed into another. None of them dramatic, yet all of them deeply meaningful. The man who started it never knew how far the ripple traveled. But that's the beauty of grace. It doesn't need recognition. It works silently, expanding naturally. In families too, small acts of grace become seeds of values that grow across generations. A father who shows respect to his spouse teaches children respect without ever giving a lecture. A mother who forgives teaches her children the beauty of letting go. A sibling who shares teaches generosity in ways no textbook could. These little examples shape young minds, and when they grow, they pass those same lessons forward to their children. The ripple moves from one generation to the next, ensuring that a single act of kindness doesn't die with the person who started it. Even communities thrive on these little ripples. A volunteer serving food to the hungry may not know that the person they feed will one day rise above hardship and help many others. A teacher who encourages a struggling student may not realize that the child will one day become a leader who transforms lives. Grace never wastes itself. Every small act, every kind gesture, and every silent service is like a pebble dropped into a pond. The ripples keep moving long after the pebble has disappeared from sight. The most inspiring part of this truth is that every one of us has the power to create ripples. We may not all have wealth, influence, or authority, but we all have the ability to smile, to listen, to encourage, to serve. And when we consistently choose these small acts of grace, we may not even realize how many lives we touch. The world doesn't always need great heroes. It needs ordinary people who live gracefully and let their small actions spread goodness, like light spreading from candle to candle. Every circle of life, whether it is a family, a community, or an entire society, has certain threads that keep it woven together. These threads are not always rules, systems, or authority often. They are the presence of a person whose grace becomes a silent glue holding everyone close. Their patience, humility, and strength may not be loudly recognized, but without them, the entire structure might collapse. A graceful presence acts like the root of a tree, hidden, quiet, but essential for the stability and nourishment of everything above. Think of a family where multiple personalities live under the same roof. There are disagreements, generational gaps, and different temperaments. In such a space, it is usually one person who holds the family together, a grandmother who mediates quarrels with love, a mother who silently sacrifices her desires for peace, or a father whose calm nature prevents conflicts from growing. These individuals don't necessarily solve every problem, but their presence itself creates balance. Others may disagree, but they hesitate to cross limits because of respect for that graceful figure. Without such a presence, families often drift apart, but with it, bonds deepen. Communities too thrive because of graceful individuals who step beyond personal interest and work for collective harmony. It could be a neighbor who always lends a hand, a community elder whose wisdom prevents disputes, or a leader who treats every person with fairness. Their grace becomes a unifying force, reminding people of their shared humanity rather than their differences. In times of crisis, such people naturally emerge as anchors. Their calm words soothe fear, their decisions inspire trust, and their example restores unity when divisions threaten to grow. Even societies at large have been shaped by the presence of graceful individuals. While laws and systems provide structure, it is the human touch of compassion, dignity, and fairness that gives society its soul. One leader with grace can uplift an entire nation. One voice of patience can prevent wars. One act of forgiveness can end cycles of hatred. Without grace, society may function, but it will lack warmth, empathy, and cohesion. With grace, it not only functions, but flourishes. What makes a graceful presence so powerful is not dominance, but influence. They don't demand respect. They earn it through their character. They don't silence conflicts with fear. They dissolve them with understanding. They don't stand above others. They walk alongside, lifting them when they stumble. Because of this, their presence naturally creates a sense of belonging. People feel safe, valued, and connected and this connection becomes the foundation for stability. Imagine a home without such a presence. Arguments escalate, misunderstandings linger, and pride takes precedence over peace. Now imagine the same home with a graceful presence. Tensions still arise, but they are softened by patience and resolved by kindness. Grace doesn't eliminate challenges. It transforms how challenges are handled. That transformation is what holds families, communities, and societies together. In truth, we all have the potential to be such a presence. One doesn't need authority or wealth to hold others together. One simply needs a heart filled with patience, humility, and love. By becoming a source of grace, we become the unseen thread that binds others closer, ensuring that unity survives even in times of difficulty. And when one person chooses to live this way, their influence extends beyond themselves, touching lives and preserving harmony across generations.